Shortly after midnight on the 6th of July 2012, 16-year-old Skyler Neese from Star City, West Virginia, snuck out of her home to meet her two best friends, but never returned. Skyler Annette Neese was born on February 10, 1996, in Star City, West Virginia. She was the only child of Dave Neese, a product assembler at Walmart, and his wife Mary, an administrative assistant in a cardiac lab. Despite its name, Star City is a town in Monongalia County, with a population of just over 1,800, according to the 2020 census. Skyler was described as intelligent, compassionate, bubbly, and stubborn. Outside of her studies, she worked part-time in a local Wendy's, a job she loved. She intended to become a criminal defense lawyer after high school. During nursery school, Skyler befriended Morgan Lawrence, who, like Skyler, was also an only child. Morgan was drawn to Skyler's infectious personality, and the two girls' families also became close friends. Morgan's parents would go on to say that Skyler and Morgan's relationship was sisterly. The two girls made a pact that they would always be there for one another, and that they would be bridesmaids at each other's weddings. After Skyler began elementary school, she befriended Sheila Eddy, who was 5 months older. Like Skyler, Sheila was an only child. The two girls quickly became friends, and were said to be inseparable. In University High School, the duo became a trio after they were joined by Rachel Schoaf, a striking redhead with Broadway aspirations. Once again, Rachel Schoaf was an only child. The three girls quickly became inseparable, and it was not long before they began referring to themselves as the Three Musketeers. Unfortunately, Sheila was not very well liked by Skyler's friends, who described her as mean and controlling. In fact, Skyler's friends would avoid her when she was with Sheila. Despite this, Skyler had no intention of ending her friendship with Sheila, as they had been best friends since elementary school. Rachel's friends felt exactly the same about Sheila, whom they blamed for changes in Rachel's personality and behaviour. Rachel, however, chose to remain friends with Sheila, even though Rachel came from a relatively affluent Catholic family and was more popular than Sheila. Without Sheila, she still would have been popular. Morgan Lawrence, Skyler's childhood best friend, said that she was not very fond of Sheila and that Skyler would occasionally act like Sheila. Unfortunately, Skyler and Morgan were by this point no longer as close as they had been when they were young, and had made new friends since starting high school. The three girls would eventually get into trouble, though for relatively minor things, such as getting drunk, smoking weed, and staying out past the town's 9 p.m. curfew. For a while, the three girls remained best friends. That is, until their sophomore year. Following a sleepover in late summer 2011, Skyler wrote in her diary that she had witnessed Rachel and Sheila have drunken sex in front of her, and that she felt deeply uncomfortable. The sleepover ended with Skyler and Sheila arguing, and from here, their relationship began to sour. At the same time, as Rachel and Sheila became closer, Skyler began to be excluded from activities. Some of Skyler's tweets reflected how she felt as a result of this. Because Skyler knew many things about Rachel and Sheila that no one else knew, she threatened to reveal their secrets. Once again, some of Skyler's tweets hinted at this and would lead to arguments between her and Sheila. Although their relationship continued to worsen, in June 2012, Sheila and Skyler went on a week-long break to Myrtle Beach, but they spent the entire trip arguing and fighting. After they returned, Sheila told Rachel that Skyler had to die. Shockingly, Sheila's discussion on murder did not come out of the blue. In October 2011, some students had overheard Sheila and Rachel discussing the best way to bury a body. One girl, however, recalled on one occasion that the two girls were referring specifically to Skyler, and even informed her of this. Skyler, however, laughed it off and believed that her two best friends were only joking. Nevertheless, Skyler confronted the two girls about these comments, but they assured her they didn't mean anything. A particularly chilling video shows Sheila jokingly asking Skyler how she would prefer to die. In spring 2012, Rachel told a classmate that she would not mind if Skyler died. Despite the tensions in the group, Skylar remained friends with Sheila and Rachel, and although she was aware that her friendship with Sheila was deteriorating, she had no idea of what her best friends were secretly planning to do. Skylar's final tweet read, "You doing shit like this is why I will never completely trust you." On Thursday the 5th of July 2012, Skylar returned from a shift at Wendy's at around 10 p.m. She kissed her parents goodnight and then went to bed. At around midnight, a CCTV camera captured Sheila's car pulling up outside the Neese's apartment building, and moments later, Skylar was seen entering the car. She had done this many times before and, as was customary for her, she left a small bench below her window, implying that she intended to return. The silver sedan then drove off the premises. The next morning, Dave and Mary woke up early to go to work, and they assumed that Skylar was still asleep. Dave returned home at midday so that Skylar could use his car to go to her shift. When he tried to enter her bedroom, however, he found that the door was locked from the inside. He then noticed the bench under the window, meaning his daughter had snuck out at some point the night before. Dave called Sheila, who admitted that she had spoken to Skylar over the phone at around midnight, but insisted that she had not seen her. Shortly after, Mary returned from work, and a manager from Wendy's called the house to ask if Skylar was coming in for her shift. As the Neeses became increasingly worried, they called the police. Sheila then called the house again, but this time changed her story. She now claimed that she and Rachel had picked up Skylar from her apartment at around 11 p.m. and dropped her off at the end of her street less than an hour later, just before midnight. Mary, however, knew that something was seriously wrong and turned to Facebook to appeal for any information on Skylar's whereabouts. Sheila and her mother, Tara, arrived at the Neeses' home and offered to help in the search for Skylar. They knocked on the doors of nearby houses to ask if anyone had seen or heard from Skylar, but no one had. The landlord analysed the surveillance footage, but it does not appear that anyone knew that the silver sedan was actually Sheila Eddy's car. Strangely, nobody, especially the Neeses, thought to question Sheila's story that she had dropped Skylar off at the end of her street shortly before midnight, yet the CCTV footage showed her getting into a stranger's car at around midnight. Moreover, because of the grainy quality of the footage, no one could determine to whom the sedan belonged, nor could they make out the registration plate or anyone in the vehicle. Sheila began posting on social media about how much she missed Skylar and wanted her back. Not only were the local police department involved in the investigation, but so were the FBI. This was because someone else had gone missing from the area shortly before Skylar disappeared, so police suspected that the two cases might have been linked. On the 9th of July 2012, Sheila was interviewed by police. She relayed her story that she had picked Skylar up at 11 p.m. and dropped her off less than an hour later. The officer, Ronnie Gaskins, noted that she showed no real concern for her missing friend's whereabouts and seemed more interested in the progress of the investigation. He also noted that Sheila had a silver car, like the one seen in the surveillance footage, and linked this to Skylar's disappearance. Sheila would be interviewed several more times over the summer. Dave and Mary Neese ordered police to leave her alone and mourn the disappearance of her best friend, as they did not believe she could have been involved in Skylar's disappearance. On the 10th of July 2012, Gaskins contacted Rachel Shove, who insisted she knew nothing about Skylar's disappearance. Rachel had left for church camp on the 7th of July, but spent the morning of the 6th of July boating with her mother and her mother's friend. Both her mother and her mother's friend noted a cut on Rachel's ankle. Rachel agreed to attend an interview as soon as she returned from camp. Rachel told police exactly what Sheila had said to them. Police became slightly suspicious in that their stories matched exactly, to the point where they seemed rehearsed. They also noted that whereas Sheila remained calm and collected during her interviews, Rachel seemed distracted and would draw on the table and play with the pencils. Gaskins felt that she knew more than she was letting on. Despite this, there was no solid evidence that Sheila or Rachel had anything to do with Skylar's disappearance. After reviewing the CCTV footage, police knew they could not issue an Amber Alert because Skylar appeared to have got into the car voluntarily. An Amber Alert can only be issued when a child is abducted. When the school year began in September 2012, rumours about what had happened to Skylar began to spread like wildfire. Rumours included the possibility that she had overdosed at a party, that she had fled the country, or that she had fled town to escape her abusive parents, which caused some of the community to turn against David and Mary Neese, who insisted that they had never harmed their daughter in any way. At around the same time, students noticed that Rachel and Sheila were beginning to isolate themselves from their fellow students and were spending more and more time together. More than a few students suspected that they knew more about Skylar's disappearance than they were willing to admit. Because local police were not making much progress in their investigation, Mary Neese contacted state police and they became involved in the investigation. After reviewing the CCTV footage multiple times, they concluded that Sheila was not seen picking Skylar up at 11 p.m. like she had claimed. They were also granted warrants to seize all of Rachel and Sheila's electronic devices. The FBI frequently visited University High School to interview students. Daniel Holvasser, a friend of Skylar, Rachel and Sheila, was asked by the FBI if he had noticed anything different about Rachel and Sheila. He explained that while they didn't seem different as such, they had begun to spend more time together. Mary Neese began to notice that Sheila would come to the house regularly and sit and cry in Skylar's room with Mary. She became more interested in the investigation and would ask the Neeses to keep her informed of any developments in the case. But state police eventually ordered them to stop informing her of what was happening because they felt that she might have known more than she was letting on. Sheila, however, was undeterred and began asking other people to keep her updated on the investigation. Sheila, on the other hand, showed no interest in the investigation and never once visited Skylar's parents to offer her condolences or offer emotional support. That said, her body language was giving her away. Noticing that Rachel was beginning to crack, police were able to convince her to change her story after pointing out that the CCTV footage did not match her version of events. They also revealed that they had their phone records and that their phones had revealed that they had travelled in the opposite direction from where they had said they had gone on the night of the 12th of July. Following this, Rachel changed her story. Now, she said that the three had gone out for a joyride and that Skylar ran off into the woods, but they were unable to catch her. After hearing that Rachel had changed her story, Sheila changed her story too, to match Rachel's new version of events. On the 16th of December, and no closer to knowing what had happened to her daughter, Mary Neese posted a lengthy message on her Facebook page explaining what had happened so far. She implicitly accused Rachel and Sheila of lying, and even mentioned the possibility that Skylar might have been murdered. By this point, the entire community suspected that Rachel and Sheila knew what had happened to Skylar. Rachel's behaviour became disturbingly erratic and agitated, and after getting into a fight with her parents, she had to be hospitalised in a psychiatric unit. On the 3rd of January 2013, Rachel was interviewed by police, and after only a few questions, she told police, "We stabbed her." She went on to explain exactly what played out that night. She said that she and Sheila picked Skylar up just after midnight, and then drove for nearly an hour, until they reached some remote woodland in Greene County, Pennsylvania, where they had smoked weed in the past. Rachel or Sheila said they had forgotten their lighter, so Skylar agreed to go to the car and get hers. As her back was turned, the two girls counted to 3, their prearranged signal, and began stabbing her. Rachel claimed to have stabbed Skylar only once, whereas Sheila stabbed Skylar up to 50 times. Skylar did not go down without a fight. She defended herself the best she could, and at one point, she managed to wrestle a knife out of one of the girls' hands and cut Rachel's ankle with the knife. When asked what Skylar's final words in those moments were, Rachel said that all Skylar could ask was why. After the frenzied attack, the two girls waited until they were completely certain that Skylar was dead, after which they tried to bury Skylar's body. But because the ground was too hard and rocky, they hid her body under dirt and branches, They then removed their bloodied clothes, cleaned themselves in the nearby river, put on clean clothes and then drove home, arriving home just before dawn. Despite Rachel's confession, police decided not to arrest her immediately, given that because she had lied to police before, they could not be sure that she wasn't lying again. Still, Rachel agreed to take police to the place where Skylar had been murdered. Unfortunately, when detectives Rachel and her attorney arrived, the snow was so heavy that they were unable to find Skylar's body. Following this, police, in the knowledge that Sheila would be anxious to meet Rachel, put Rachel's room under electronic surveillance and asked her to meet Sheila, but Rachel was unable to extract anything incriminating from Sheila. 2 weeks after the failed attempt to recover Skylar's body, police and canine units returned to the site. Most of the snow had melted, giving police more hope of finding her body. While a dog's handler was picking up a GPS tracker that had fallen off the dog, he found skeletal remains under a pile of branches. During the following months, Rachel was allowed to roam free while police gathered evidence against her and Sheila. Some of Sheila's tweets suggested that she knew police were after her. Police were given a search warrant to seize every knife in her house and to search her car. On the 13th of March 2013, a post-mortem confirmed that the body found in Woodland was that of Skyler Neese. It also established that she had been stabbed 50 times, just as Rachel had said. Sheila posted this tribute to Skylar on her Twitter account. On the 1st of May 2013, Rachel had her first day in court, where she pled guilty to the murder of Skyler Neese. She agreed to testify against Sheila in any trial. In exchange, the prosecution agreed to recommend 20 years for second-degree murder. Sheila was arrested outside a restaurant while dining with her mother. As she was arrested, she asked her mother, "Will everything be okay?" On the 4th of September, Sheila pleaded not guilty to the charges of murder, kidnapping and conspiracy. On the 24th of January 2014, she began sobbing at her pre-trial hearing. She finally pleaded guilty. In exchange for her guilty plea, the prosecution agreed to a sentence of 15 years with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Rachel's sentencing guidelines began on the 2nd of February 2014. She accepted the sentence of 30 years for second-degree murder, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. Rachel tried to apologize to Skylar's family in court, but they refused to accept her apology on the grounds that she kept silent for months after the murder and only confessed when she knew police were closing in on her. Sheila Eddy and Rachel Shove are detained in Lakin Correctional Center in Mason County, West Virginia. Perhaps the most baffling part of this case is the fact that no clear motive was established, and neither Rachel nor Sheila have ever explained why they killed Skylar. One of the most widely accepted theories, however, is that Skylar knew that Rachel and Sheila were secretly in a lesbian relationship and had threatened to out them, so they killed her to stop this fact becoming known. Rachel came from a devout Catholic family, and the repercussions of being outed as a lesbian would have been deeply unpleasant. However, this theory has not caught on with investigators or Skylar's family, who have stated that Skylar, though not gay herself, had many gay and bi friends, and would never have taunted someone because of their sexual preferences. They have also said that she was a gay rights activist. Some officers have suggested that Rachel and Sheila were jealous of Skylar because she had a loving family, held down a part-time job outside of her studies, was a high-flying student and was very popular. Other officers, however, believed that Rachel and Sheila killed Skylar simply to see if they could get away with murder. Had Rachel not cracked and confessed to police, they might well have. Ultimately, only Rachel Shove and Sheila Eddy can explain why they brutally killed Skyler Neese one night in July 2012. But for now, they're not speaking.